Coming up on 2.5 Geeks, we'll be talking about the Apple iPhone 4S, a new hybrid drive from OCZ, a super thin Zenbook, and a whole lot more.
The bar has been set wicked fast.
It rocked in the benchmarks. We're going to up the ante a little bit.
Processing power, I kind of understand this. Welcome back to 2.5 Geeks. I'm Ayaz Akhtar alongside Dave Altavilla and Marco Chiappetta. Collectively, we do form Voltron. How you guys doing?
Excellent, and you?
Can't complain. How about you, Marco? Can you complain?
I'm doing great. I got both my girls are in bed, a big bowl of chili waiting for me in the other room, so things are fantastic.
So your mind is somewhere else. You're thinking past the show and you're thinking about a bowl of chili. But you're going to have to sit here.
I never think past the show.
You're going to have to sit here and listen to us talk about technology. You might even have to participate, Marco. Okay?
You know why those girls are in bed? That bowl of chili, you know, it's going to get ugly.
Let's talk about something that's not angry. Let's talk about the iPhone 4S. Now, Hot Hardware had a piece up, said, Apple iPhone 4S, what's in it for you versus iPhone 4? Because form factor-wise, it looks very, very similar. I think there's slight modifications to where the volume buttons are, and the antenna design looks slightly different. But apart from that, people wouldn't notice the difference if they were just looking at the phone. Dave, what exactly do you want to highlight about the iPhone 4S?
Well, I guess the long and short of it is, if you were an early adopter on the iPhone 4, and you're not the type to fork out a chunk of coin every time a new iteration of a phone hits the market, you're probably jonesing right about now and wishing you held off, because the iPhone 4S brings more horsepower, some interesting additional features, a better camera, and some new software that you can't get currently on the iPhone 4 original. And you know, there are a lot of critics, frankly, that were very disappointed in the fact that the iPhone 4 really didn't deliver, or iPhone 4S, excuse me, really didn't deliver features that were iPhone 5-like. In other words, a larger screen or something to really differentiate the phone. But this is not unlike the iPhone 3G and the iPhone 3GS iteration, when Apple came out with that. It's very much, the next evolution of the same iPhone 4 handset, but with a little bit more horsepower and some features under the hood. So what are you going to do?
Well, under that glass is actually a dual-core processor. It makes it much more in line with the iPad 2. I think it's got an A5 in there. I think it's got the same amount of RAM, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's 512 megabytes. They didn't up it to a gig for some reason.
Correct.
But the big draw to this thing, to the iPhone 4S anyway, at least in the commercials, is Siri, the voice assistant that used to run on iPhone 4, that Apple now has cut support for. Is this a killer feature for the masses at all? Or like, do you think this is actually also hardware dependent, considering the iPad 2 should be able to run this, iPhone 4 used to? I mean, is the hardware so spectacular that it can? This is the only thing that can handle Siri?
Well, it's an interesting device, and no, absolutely, it's not the only thing that can handle Siri. If Apple wanted to enable Siri on the standard iPhone 4, it certainly would run. It's Apple locking things down, as they like to do, to keep basically a little extra checkbox, feature checkbox for the iPhone 4S. That's all it really is. And so, it's an interesting device, the iPhone 4S, in that for folks that are, interested in performance enthusiasts, or people that, care about specs, certainly the A5 is a much more capable chip. Definitely, dual core, you're going to have better multitasking performance for, lots of applications that, on a handset are going to demonstrate, significantly better response times. And we actually, in our review, reiterated our experience with it, and it absolutely translates to snappier performance. But the other thing, and you mentioned Siri, you have to hand it to Apple. Very strategically came out with this very compelling, interesting app that is getting the buzz in the mainstream, so that enthusiasts that care about the hardware, there's something in it for them, right? There's maybe not a bigger screen or a nicer quality display than what you have in the iPhone 4 original, But for, you've got that dual core processor, so that's good for you. Get a checkbox there for the enthusiast. And then in the mainstream, the buzz is Siri, this cool, digital assistant that, knows my every desire when I ask where's the nearest hot dog stand. It's just another hook that Apple threw into the product that is exclusive to the iPhone 4S. And so certainly a bit of marketing mastery that we always see from Apple. But what's going to be interesting, and what I think the bigger question is, because we didn't see the iPhone 5, or we haven't seen it yet, the next iteration with a bigger screen and some real differentiating hardware features, what's Ice Cream Sandwich and the next generation of Android operating system on these big, beautiful, powerful Android handsets in the market? What's that going to do to Apple's market share? Although, hey, they've already sold a few million of them, so I don't think Apple cares much right now either.
Yeah, they only sold 4 million in like 3 days in 7 countries. That's something to sneeze at. Marco, you got any insights on the iPhone 4S?
I find it funny how much buzz Siri is getting. A bunch of guys in the Android development community launched an app called Iris. It's Siri backwards. They spent 8 hours, a total of 8 whopping hours developing Iris, and it does much of the same thing. It's nowhere near as refined as Siri, but no exaggerating. 8 hours of work went into it, and it works similarly. I think Siri is like Dr. Spatzo for the iPhone. The real geeks will understand what I'm talking about. It's cute, but people aren't going to use it all that much. I think the people that spring for an iPhone 4S are just they didn't really do their research. It's really, a half generation behind a lot of the Android phones. And if the iPhone 5 launches this coming summer, they're going to be angry. And that thing's, if that thing drops to $79 and the iPhone 5 comes in a few months, I don't know.
I can't disagree with Marco on that one bit. Again, I just want to underscore that, Apple threw that little hook out there with Siri for the mainstream, for the folks that don't read down to the detail specs and aren't particularly aware, maybe are Apple inclined with a previous generation device that they've used before and enjoyed, their experience with, whether it be a notebook or a handset from Apple. And it was just one of those things, we needed something really new because this looks a lot like an iPhone 4. So let's put this, little digital assistant in there and, hey, wow, that's cool. So yeah, guys like us, we're not wowed easily, but I think the mainstream probably was, and they got a few dollars in the deal as a result.
I think it's very hard to tell the normal person to say, hey, look, there's a dual-core processor in there, and you can have iOS again. It's not like you can do dual booting on this thing or anything. I mean, if you see ads for Droids or Android phones, they don't go like, hey, you can root this, and you can put on any other variant.
I want to interject for a second there because, for what you're saying is correct. But, if you take a phone like, the Samsung Galaxy S2, you have a bigger screen, faster processor, more memory, replaceable battery, user expandable SD storage. It's nowhere near as locked down as Apple. I know some of that stuff is geeky, but some of it really isn't. And it's up to the people selling these devices to educate the consumers who really don't know. But, people are going to buy iPhones if they want an iPhone. Unfortunately,
people buy. I mean, Apple's selling emotion. That's what you watch a FaceTime ad, right? What is it? It's a video chat. It's video chat. It's nothing like spectacular, right. Or it's going to be. I want to ask about. Show me a weasel. So please hook into Wolfram Alpha so I can see a picture. Like these are not. These aren't specs. And the thing is,
called marketing, boys.
It's just marketing, flat out marketing. So I think it's got some decent specs under there. I think it's a little bit of a catch up piece until the next gen, because this thing is going to make 3GS owners happy to get the 4S, and then the next gen will probably be something more in line of the larger screen and a lot more RAM. I would expect that thing to be like it'll blow this thing out of the water. On to
it better.
It has to.
It better is right.
It's got another app. Yeah, that makes it better. Let's talk about the OCZ RevoDrive Hybrid PCI Express. Now this isn't a normal. Normally we talk about OCZ and they have SSDs that cost like an arm and a leg because they're super fast and awesome. But this is a different approach. This is something that was kind of an older idea. It's like, let's put a hard drive, an old disk spinning drive, and an SSD to have some kind of hybrid performance. How did it do, Marco?
So it did well, generally speaking. Let me hold it up here and show everybody. This is the baby here. That is the RevoDrive Hybrid.
Ooh,
So yeah, you're correct. It pairs a 2.5-inch hard drive to an SSD. It's actually a pair of SSD controllers with 100 gigs of NAND flash in there. And it's kind of a tough product to categorize. So we have a few hybrid solutions now. You have products like the Momentus XT from Seagate, which is completely self-contained. You have Intel's rapid storage technology, where if you have a Z68 chipset, you can pair an SSD to a hard drive already in the system. Then you have something like this. Now, as far as its performance, in some scenarios, the RevoDrive Hybrid just blows everything out of the water. It can transfer up to a gig a second if everything's coming straight out of the SSD cache. Now, for something to come out of the SSD cache, it has to be cached first. So if you're working with a fresh batch of data, you're really limited to the speed of the drive. So, you know, for the price of this device, it's about $470. You can have situations where it'll blow away even a pair of modern SSDs in RAID 0, or you could be limited by the speed of the hard drive. Overall, though, I think it's probably one of the better hybrid solutions. It was super easy to set up, and for commonly accessed data, say if you copy your Outlook PST and your Steam folder, your games to the hard drive, all of that stuff's going to get cached fairly quickly. And you'll have all this storage. You have a terabyte of storage, but SSD-like performance. So it's a pretty cool product, but you have to understand, you know, its pluses and minuses.
Now, how fast was that 2.5-inch drive, and why exactly would they go with the 2.5-inch drive instead of something larger? I mean, if you're going to put this into a desktop anyway, why not cram a 3.5-inch drive on there that could have some more and more storage? That is.
I think it's strictly for form factor. It only fits in a single slot. It just barely encroaches on the next slot, so technically it's 2 slots wide. But I mean, I think it was probably, they partnered with Toshiba, they got a good price on the drives, because there's really no reason I can't unscrew this and throw a 2.5-inch 10,000 RPM Velociraptor on here. It's just the price is going to go up a couple $100, and then it gets even harder to justify versus just buying a larger SSD and a large hard drive.
Now, who's this actually targeted for? Because you explained a bunch of different styles of hybrids where you could have an SSD and pair it. You can do RAID. You can do a lot of different things. Why would somebody pick this solution where it's on one card versus going through some other solution?
I think for somebody who may have an existing system and maybe doesn't have SATA 6G, or they don't want to be bothered with managing multiple volumes, like if you had a separate SSD and a hard drive, you literally just plug this in. You eliminate the SATA bottleneck. It's a 5-minute install. You don't have to manage multiple volumes. It takes care of all the caching for you, and it just works. So if you're a performance enthusiast, you maybe don't have a Z68 set up and can't do Intel's caching, then it's worthy of consideration.
Onto a super thin laptop from Asus, which I always call Acer because they're filed like that in my head. But this is the Asus Zenbook UX21E, which I don't think is actually the full name of the device. If you haven't seen it, if you look at it from the side, you hardly see it. It's a super thin Ultrabook. It's part of like Intel's push for basically MacBook Air clones. Dave, you got to handle one. What did you think?
Yes, actually, here it is. I'll hold it up on camera for everybody to see. We also have a video preview of it on Hot Hardware that I stepped through just the features and a little bit of the performance of it. But I'm currently right now running the full benchmark suite on it to see how it performs. But it's an 11.6-inch, super light, about 2.4 pounds in round numbers. And yes, it is an Ultrabook, as Intel's specification coined, and their marketing term that they coined. It is designed to the Ultrabook specification that Intel set forth, and Asus calls it a Zenbook. But basically, Intel they actually set up funding for their partners. I think it's like a $300 million investment, fund that they had set aside to help their partners develop this new class of ultra thin notebooks that are based on Intel Core technology. And specifically, this has a Intel Core i7-2677M processor, which is interesting in that it's the first Sandy Bridge CULV, Consumer Ultra Low Voltage processor that we've seen here in the lab. And it actually, the Asus UX21E, the Zenbook, is also the first Ultrabook that we've seen in the lab here at Hot Hardware. So first one out of the gate for us, and very impressive. Excellent performance, certainly very capable in terms of multimedia, but super light, super thin, and real sharp. I mean, this has a real nice brushed aluminum finish, solid aluminum body. It is a classy chassis, to be sure.
Now, I think that thing actually has aluminum keys on the keyboard. Have you found that to be strange at all?
I wouldn't say that they're aluminum. They tend to be, maybe they are aluminum. I'd have to check it. They don't feel heavy-duty aluminum, you know, like they don't feel metal. They could almost be plastic with some sort of coating on them. I'll have to do some research on that for you, Ayaz. But I can tell you that the keyboard layout is nice. It's actually very comfortable for a 12-inch form factor, a very small machine, almost a netbook-sized machine with, you know, a good-sized keyboard. One of the things that was a little bit lacking for me in the keyboard was key travel. It seemed like it was a little shallow to me, and so I found myself taking a little bit of extra time to get used to that lack of key travel. Real nice, large touchpad. And again, just really impressive performance. Just got through running our Battery Eater Pro test on it, and it lasted just short of 3 hours, about 2 hours and 55 minutes or so to be exact on a charge. And that's worst case, exercising the integrated graphics in the Core i7 processor, as well as the CPU and hard drive simultaneously. It's really working the whole system. I think it's going to last more like 5 or 6 hours just browsing the web and you know, doing some light duty stuff like that.
Now, you said this is the first CULV i7 that you've seen or that is out there. Anecdotally, how did it perform? I mean, does it feel like an i7 or does it feel like a really fast i5?
Yeah, no, actually, it is a dual core Core i7 chip, and so it's dual core with hyper-threading. So it actually represents 4 logical threads to the OS for multi-thread performance. And yeah, that's the nice thing about this thing is it's the power gating that Intel has built into, you know, the Sandy Bridge core technology. This thing clocks down as low as 1.8 gigahertz for its stock speed, and then turbo boosts up to 2.9 gigahertz. And so real, you know, low power when it needs to be, 17 watt TDP, I think, for this chip. But, you know, it'll scale up to 2.9 gig on a dual core basis, you know, and, you know, when you need that sort of performance. So it was a very responsive machine. The other thing that Asus did, and a lot of the Ultrabooks are bringing to market because SSD cost is coming down these days. It's got 128 gig SSD, so this thing boots with Intel's Instant On technology. This thing boots in under 15 seconds. As I've been playing with it and testing it, every time I boot the machine, it seems to get a little bit faster. It's like Intel's caching technology is beginning to you know, learn the drivers that get loaded and cache all the bits a little bit more, and so it's getting faster and faster every time I boot it. It seems it's impressive.
Yeah, well, it's impressive if you just want something that's all put together. It's one piece. You can't really expand it. What if you wanted to build your own machine? You know, you're gonna need a motherboard, and I think Hot Hardware did a freaking crazy roundup.
Crazy.
Crazy, a lot of stuff. The Z68 Roundup, you guys are calling it. You checked out stuff from Asus, EVGA, ASRock. I never know how to pronounce that properly. MSI, Zotac, and more. Marco, try to run us through this.
Sure. So our man Seth, he took a look at, I think it was 7 motherboards from all the companies that you mentioned. You know, right now, until Intel's next-gen super high-end Sandy Bridge E parts arrive, the Z68 with Sandy Bridge, you know, is the cutting edge for Intel. So we took a look at a whole bunch of boards, different form factors, different price points, different feature sets, kind of evaluated, you know, the whole gamut here, and found that, you know, most of the boards perform at a very similar level with these modern processors that have the integrated North Bridge, integrated PCI Express connectivity, all the CPU cores all on die. There's not much in the motherboard to differentiate performance, so it comes down to sort of features and price. But that just shows you can get high performance in a small form factor like the Zotac board, or you can go straight ATX, like the editor's choice winning the Asus board that Seth picked, and end up with a killer performing machine regardless of form factor.
And did you have a personal favorite out of this, Marco?
So I didn't write the piece.
Right.
Seth
I'm sure
wrote the piece.
you've looked at it. I'm sure you've read it all up, and you must have a preference.
Yeah, I tend to lean towards Asus motherboards. The refinement in their UEFI BIOS, their balanced features, pricing is usually a little bit on the higher side, but it's warranted looking at the feature set and performance and overclockability and all the stuff that they offer. But really, he had a really nice roundup of boards. There weren't any stinkers in the bunch. If you're looking for something mini ITX, the Zotac board is hot. If you're looking for a straight-up ATX board, there's lots to choose from. The EVGA board is really nice for hardcore overclockers. There was a couple of gigabyte boards that had tons of features to a ton of USB 3 connectivity, dual gigabit LAN. So there's really something there for everybody. I tend to agree with Seth. I probably would have chose the Asus board had I worked with all of them. But there's some nice boards in this roundup. There's really no stinkers.
Lots of different form factors. Now, the Mini ITX has me thinking already of doing another HTPC. So thanks for planting that in my head again. Any possible updates on a contest you guys may or may not be running? Let's throw it to Dave.
Possibly.
Possibly?
Possibly, yes. Actually, no, definitely. I'm lying, definitely. So we actually just got confirmation today on exact specifications. Our friends at Intel have connected us with the good folks at PC Audio Labs, and we're going to be giving away to the masses, to some lucky winner in our sweepstakes, which we have yet to name. We'll be getting to that shortly. We'll be announcing it and launching it in the next few days. We're going to be giving away a PC Audio Labs Rockbox MC7XS. So there.
So that's what's coming.
Yes, well, I'll give you a little bit more details.
Is there more to it, or is it just like a box?
Tease you a
if it's a box full of rocks, this is not a good prize. You should rethink that.
3.4 gigahertz Intel Core i7 2600K, Z68 gigabyte motherboard, 16 gig of DDR3 1333 system memory, and an ATI-based graphics card. I'm going to go a little bit lighter in the details now. 20 gig Intel 311 series SSD for SSD caching. We talked about that. And I'm looking at a 1 terabyte drive and a 2 terabyte drive and a FireWire card. It is dialed for, optimized for audio production and quiet operation. So this is going to be a high fidelity system for some lucky winner.
Very interesting. I can't wait to read more. I'm sure there are going to be details at HotHardware.com. Also, you can go there and find out everything we talked about on today's show, or you can go around the web. You can check out Facebook.com/HotHardware, Twitter.com/HotHardware, Dig.com/HotHardware, and YouTube.com/HotHardwareVids for lots of moving pictures. It's exciting. And there's audio, too. That's how videos work.
Hey.
Yes, exactly. Just like what Dave was doing.
Bunnies, I
think that was almost a shadow puppet competition, which we will start doing after the show is over. But that does it for this episode of 2.5 Geeks. Thanks for stopping by.